Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Master Your Mental podcast. I'm so excited to be discussing one of my favorite topics today. As you guys can see from the title, self-care strategies and more to prevent burnout, that is what we are getting into today. I am joined by Sara Palmer, a great woman who is a speaker, trainer, and coach. Sara has helped over 20,000 children and adults to achieve success during her time as a veteran public school teacher, professional consultant, and lay minister. I'm so excited to have Sara here to chat with us and share some tips on preventing burnout and the importance of practicing self-care. So without further ado, welcome Sara to the podcast.
I could not be happier to be here, Paris. So excited. So glad that everybody's listening. This is going to be one of those actually useful, not just theoreticals. So like by the end of our conversation, you will have actual things to do, not just the idea that self-care is good. Like
I love that.
Yes.
I love that so much. So I'm just excited to have you here, get into this conversation. So before we go ahead and dive on in, tell us some more about who you are, what you do, and what lights you up.
Oh, so many things. Okay, so I am Sara Palmer. I am affectionately known as the Permission to Choose speaker, trainer, and coach, partially because I give women, especially high achieving moms, that permission to choose some things and not just have things chosen for them and have to make the best of it. So by high achieving, basically, if you're listening, you're high achieving. So you're somebody who puts things on a list, gets stuff done. Even if you're type B and you can't remember where the list is, you're still somebody who like puts it up, takes it down, makes it work. And now you're looking around and you're like, this is not where I was supposed to be. This isn't what I was promised when I was like, do this, get this done, finish this, and then happy. But it's that you're here and it's not the same. So I definitely work with high achieving moms, and I'm hired by businesses and companies to work on strategies to move you from where you are to where you want to be without having to run away into the woods and start again.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And, something that really hit home for me, just listening to you kind of describe all of that, is just this thing that we do with, I'd love to get your take on this, with the whole to-do list thing and having the list and having, and I feel like in a way, for me, like when I do that, I'm like, oh, awesome. Now it's like, I know what I'm trying to do. I'm a little organized. I got my goals for the day, and then you'll cross stuff off, but then you'll always see that one thing where you're like, that's what I really should be doing, but I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it. It's okay. It's okay. So, so you've probably had that experience, and I probably, you've run into people with that. So what would you say to people who are, in that kind of a zone, like with these lists and like having these lists, and it also kind of drains them in a way that like leaves you exhausted, because you look back and you're like, oh man, like that's awesome, I got all this stuff done, but I still didn't do that thing. So what do you say to people like that who are dealing with that?
I am a huge fan of giving credit and attributing all sorts of things, because one of the most important tenets of working with me is the idea that we don't do this alone, right? We don't have to try to figure out everything by ourselves. So I'm probably going to refer to a couple people during our conversation, and I will always give credit where credit is due. I'm not going to say, oh, I made this up. No, I took this straight from somebody else who was like, please share this with the world. So Rachel Luna, who is an amazing confidence coach, fantastic. You look her up. She's got podcasts, she's got stuff. She's been a huge inspiration in terms of getting out of your own way. She has what's called the daily profitable to-do list. So especially folks in business, but I've moved it for business and personal. She, in essence, says, have a master list. Like have everything ever you think about, dump it on their list. The people who like the getting things done, basically have your brain dump list. And then what Rachel suggests is having some categories: profitable, operational, family and life, and then grateful. So what she does and what I've done, and it's actually been way more useful than looking at, like you said, put 10 things on a list, you get 7 of them done, but You didn't get 3 of them done. Oh, I'm a loser, right?
Yeah.
She says, take 1, maybe 2 things from your master list to put on your daily to-do list. So I have 1 profitable thing, which means 1 thing that's going to help my business in terms of networking, getting to know people, being here, that type of thing. Then to 1 operational thing, which is not nearly as interesting. That's like the back of house stuff. Make sure that my money is coming in and going out, check my QuickBooks. And then 1 or 2 life or family things. And then separately, just the list of some stuff you're grateful for. And the
Wow.
cool thing is you get through them. You can, at the end of the day, go, I did everything on my list. You have the master one. You got through the little stuff. And if you have a bunch of energy, go get something else from the big list. But if not, you get this little daily, yay.
Yes.
And that feels so much better than I got all this done, but I didn't get that. No, I can like put an X across my list at the end of the day if I got it all done. It feels good.
I love that so much. I love how you broke that down and just organized it in those different categories. I feel like that's so helpful, because I feel like sometimes when you have this big list, right? I feel like sometimes you can have multiple lists and you're like, I got the master list and I got today, then I have then it's so much that it's overwhelming that you start to be like, okay, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make my bed because I can cross it off, did it, done. And it's like, we start with like the little tiny little things, just because I feel like it like helps you feel like, okay, you've done this, got this done. But I love how you just laid that out there. And I would love to kind of get into the focus on burnout. So like, what got you interested in doing work on this? Because I feel like burnout affects everyone in some kind, like whether you're a mother, you have a job where you're working like multiple hours a week, or whatever you are doing or working on, we all tend to get into those moments where we're like, oh man, like this is a lot right now. Like, I don't know if I can, you start to feel like you don't have energy or time, or you feel like everything is almost too much. So what really got you into wanting to do work in that section on burnout? And what is like one of the most biggest lessons you've learned from it so far?
I came around to learning more and really starting that focus, not on burnout first, but on self-care first, because burnout ends up being something we can fix. So I try to focus on the positive piece, but you're going to hear me talk about the burnout stuff too. That came around, that real focus on self-care started about 10 years ago when I was at that time married and had a 2-year-old, and my then husband had a drinking problem and did some pretty unexcusable things. And I recognized that the only way I was going to survive this was by focusing on myself instead of trying to put out all the fires. And I did that with, again, I'm a big fan of huge fan of Al-Anon, which is for the family and friends of people who have a problem with drinking. So it's not, and it doesn't have to say alcoholism. If you have a problem with their drinking, welcome, please come. And it's not a session where everybody just sits around and yells, or where everybody's trying to out pity each other. It's a place where you can go and they really do understand exactly where you are, what you're going through. And there's ways that you can make things more reasonable, more acceptable, even if the circumstances around you don't change. What can you change about yourself that's positive? And that piece of self-care really started me going. My partner and I ended up divorcing. We co-parent beautifully most of the time now, but we ended up divorcing. And within a few months, actually, I stopped talking to my best friend. She chose him because she liked being able to go out and hang out with him, and I wasn't nearly as much fun in that regard.
Oh.
I actually also I cut ties with my mom, who is, I love her from way over here. It's just not a safe place to be.
Yeah.
So within a couple months, I dropped husband, best friend, and mom. Like, there's your stool of the most important relationships all gone. And a few months passed by, and I realized I was doing some pretty ridiculous behaviors, some things that were not healthy, not helpful, causing harm to myself, causing harm potentially to other people. And then I had to look up and say, oh my gosh, I think I have my own addiction. I can't just blame it on everybody else anymore. Oh, well, I'm doing this because she said or he said. No, they're gone, and I'm still doing this. So I ended up finding my own recovery, went into my own program, my own anonymous program. And while I was there, my sponsor would say to me, "Hey, Sara, how's your halt?" And this is going right to what is the biggest thing I can tell you. She said, "How's your halt?" What the heck is halt? She said, "Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. How's your halt?" Because if you are hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, you are going to make terrible decisions. You are going to feel miserable. You are going to think all of the worst things about yourself and humanity. But if you can keep an eye on your halt, you at least give yourself an advantage to make better decisions and to have better thoughts and to take better care of yourself. And I loved that, carried that forward, used it in my recovery. And over time, I realized it was missing two things. So I added two little letters to the end, a little T and a little M. So it looks like trademark, but it's not. The little T stands for thirsty. I can't tell you how many dates I wouldn't have gone on if I just would have been hydrated, been like, "Nope, we're good. Leaving after the appetizer. Thank you so much." Um, and the last one is mindset. Now, I am a white woman, but I am saying that has been so co-opted by like white women selling $150 yoga pants. Mindset for me is meditation, medication, and mental health. So if I can keep track of those things, do things throughout the day to help me keep those things in check. They're not all going to be perfect all the time, but done, at least trying, boom, burnout can't happen because I'm taking care of myself. I'm setting boundaries. I'm doing things that aren't a mani-pedi, and it's not retail therapy. I love those, but that's not self-care. I'll tell you what, I have never once come back from getting a manicure, walked into my apartment, had my daughter acting a complete fool and been like, "Hold on a second," and then like looked at my nails to center and calm myself. Be like, "Nope, gel tips are good now. I'm good. We're fine." It's not how it works. So the
Yeah.
burnout comes from inside.
I love that. You guys, I'm sitting here taking notes. Like I'm writing things down and I hope that you are too, because this is amazing. And one of the things I love most about this right now is that aspect you touched on about taking responsibility for yourself, right? Like, especially when we're going through challenging times and really, really rough situations, it can be easy, to look and say, well, I'm behaving this way because this happened to me or this person did this to me. And it's like putting that on them to kind of ease it from ourselves and saying, well, this is why I'm, going out and spending all this money, or this is why I'm going out and drinking so much, because it's how I deal with this. But then I love that you have that awareness of that, because I feel like as soon as you get awareness of that and you're like, wow, am I actually happy? Or am I just distracting myself? Am I just doing things to kind of try to get away from it, try to block it out? What am I and how am I feeling? And then when we start to say, wow, like this is not working for me or anybody, what can I do to change this? And I love that you had that awareness, that you're able to see that, because I feel like that is such an important aspect of like how you even start the process, right? Of saying, wow, okay, this is where I am. I don't like it here. Obviously, I'm not happy with this, but I want to change. And then starting those steps to change. And like you said, going to, working on recovery and finding a meeting, finding a place that is safe where you can go and connect with others who've had similar experiences. And I love that because, like you said, if we really start to practice these self-care strategies, then burnout, it prevents that from happening because we are prioritizing ourselves, our mental health. And like you said, mindset, and then how that kind of cornerstones into meditation, mental health, and all of those pieces. Because, without those pieces, I feel like it's so easy to get burned out because we allow ourselves to feel that overwhelm because we feel stuck, we feel lost, we feel confused, we feel like, no one's going to understand or like get why we are this way. But I feel like once we take those steps, obviously it's not always going to be an easy thing to do, an easy process at all. But if we're able to do that, oh my goodness, like the doors that come open from that. So I'd love to ask you, like kind of if you can reflect for me. So based, like kind of give me like, I'm trying to figure out how I want to word this. So I guess like how you were in the past compared to how you are today. What is the biggest difference that you see in yourself?
Mhm. The way that you would have seen me 20 years ago. So I have no problem. I'm 42. So in my early 20s, the way you would
Yes.
have seen me would have been very afraid. So that would have been covered by a really good pretend confidence. I would have looked like I knew what I was doing at all times. I still carry that one forward, but I flipped it from a defect into a strength. That's something that I learned in my kind of family of origin, was as long as you look like you know what you're doing, you're less likely to get trapped in something that's not so great. And so confidence was really big, but it looked condescending. And it looked like I was better than you and I knew more than you. Because really inside, I was terrified that I belonged in the room with you at all. So the best thing I could do was puff myself up like a fish and hope that everybody would swim away because they wouldn't see how tiny I was otherwise. That's one of the big things, is I would say recognizing what my defects were, what was causing me the most harm, and finding ways to make those into strengths or to get rid of them if they were not turnable. Now I'm pretty creative. I can turn pretty much any negative into something that's useful now. But now you would find me, I'm going to be much more approachable. I'm going to listen more than I used to. I used to think I had to convince you about how great and smart and funny and clever and adorable I was. And now I hope that's what comes across, but honestly, I can't be bothered. Like, I don't have time to tell you how great I am. I want to listen to what's up with you. How can I be of service? Because I'm taking care of myself, my cup is full. I have plenty of energy to share with other people. And I did want to speak to your point. You said, we kind of allow ourselves to get to this burned out place. You are 100% right. I'm going to add to that, though, that the systems if you're listening in the United States, I'm going to speak to that because that's where I've been my entire life, minus a little bit. The systems we grew up in told us that we had to run, and the harder you ran, the better. And the more you did, the more worthy you were. And if you were a parent or a caregiver of any sort, we are supposed to completely annihilate ourselves so that other people can be happy. As long as we aren't getting any cookies, there's enough cookies for everybody else. We're fine. And that was so amazing to realize and to be able to fight, to be able to say, wait, this is bull. This is not the case at all. It's not working for me. And even if I won't change for me, even if I don't think I'm worth it, that is teaching the kids that are around me that that's what women do. And boys learn that that's not what men have to do. And nobody should be completely annihilating themselves for somebody else, ever, ever. But when we model that, we're teaching kids that women should be honestly seen and not heard.
Wow, that's so true. And I feel like that's so important, to model that because, especially when we're younger, we see the things that go on, where we're growing up, right, in our homes, like with our parents, and we're like, oh, okay, we learn we're like, okay, so this is what they do, this is probably what I should do too, this is how it is. So I would love to kind of touch on that. So like for you, for self-care strategies, like how did you get into developing a good self-care routine for yourself? And what is your favorite part of your self-care routine?
My self-care routine is tied as often as possible to things in my day that have to happen. I am terrible with habits, terrible for any number of reasons. You'd need a whole nother podcast just for me to lay down on a couch and, you take gentle notes. But basically, I'm not good at them unless I tie it to something that happens every day. Maybe the time's different, but every day. Case in point, for meditation, I talk with the people that I work with, the women that I coach all the time about I do meditation as I'm falling asleep. And people go, hey, that's cheating. You're supposed to do that in the middle of the day and, find a calm place. And everybody's now picturing somebody sitting cross-legged, crisscross applesauce, right? I won't remember to do it. I'll put it off. I'll forget it. Life gets busy, but everybody has to go to sleep at some point. You may not stay asleep, but you had to go to sleep. So if you tie in some meditation, either a guided meditation or a subliminal listening thing while you're falling asleep, it counts. I've gotten over 1,000 nights in a row. 1,000.
Wow.
And I have a 4-month-old. So I'm still getting that
Oh.
in, even if the sleep's getting interrupted in the middle of the night. I had to go to sleep at the beginning. I can listen for whatever minutes, and that counts. So I talk a lot about, tying things to places and times and situations that don't change too much, because those are going to happen anyways.
Mhm.
Then I can attach habits to them to make my self-care work.
That's brilliant. That is so brilliant because I feel like what you said, things that have to happen anyway and are going to happen anyway. And I like how you compared the meditation piece because that is something that has really changed a lot for me. Cause I used to be one of those people who's like, I could not sit still. I couldn't do it. I'm like, I 5 minutes, 3 minutes, can't. Not going to happen. I can't. And I feel like when you align that with something that we're already doing, everyone's sleeping, even if it's not as much as you want or can get in or whatever, we're all sleeping, or I hope we're getting some sleep, some, and a little bit of sense of the word, right? And then if you can tie that into that and you do that before or whatever it is, and then you make that, like you said, kind of like with the habit piece, I think that's so important because we all have different things that we're doing. All of our days look different. They don't always look the same. But if there's certain things that happen that are the same, when you have a kid, a baby, it's good. You're gonna have to go in, say, hey, good morning, come here, let's get. You're good. This is what happens every day. So what can you do for yourself to prioritize yourself in those moments where you feel like I can't, you're like, I have to be full on, here for my kid. I can't, I need to like wait later. I'm going to get myself later. And what can you do for yourself during the day? Even if it looks like a simple thing, right? You make yourself a tea, right? You read a
Mhm.
book for a couple minutes, or, you put on some music and you're dancing around, whatever. Doesn't matter, as long as we can get that in some way, some form to match what we're doing in our days. I think is so powerful because I feel like we already kind of touched on this too, is sometimes we feel like we neglect that. Like we neglect ourselves. Like you said, having to feel like you have to annihilate your needs, your wants, because you have to prioritize this, this person or this thing over here. And you're like, I don't have time for me. I want to, I would like to, make time for myself, but I just don't have it. So I love that you break it down in such a simple way. Like, I love how you shared the HALT method, because when we're touching on that hungry, angry, lonely, tired, and when you start to realize what are your defects, right? Like, what are your weaknesses? And when you really have an understanding of that, like, what is causing you to feel a certain way? Like, what's going on? Let's like investigate it more. Let's get into that. And then once we really do that, and then you said you can flip that into a positive, or you can, rearrange aspects of your life, like instead of going out all the time and like being in the club, let's go like drink all the time. It's like look at that and say, okay, am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Why? And then really investigate that and say, is this something that's bringing me joy? Is this something that's helping me in some aspect of my life, whether it be forming new relationships, right? Networking, growing in some kind of a way, or whatever kind of capacity that ties into growth. Is it, or is it hurting me? Is it making me feel, do I feel shitty when I leave the situation? Do I feel like, oh, wow, no one really cares about me or really wants me here? Is that how you feel? And then how do we change that? So I love that you like laid that out that way, because it makes it so easy to follow. And I love things that are easy to follow, and I know people love it too, because no one likes something that's so complicated where we're like, okay, this sounds really cool, but I don't know what it is or how to do it
Oh,
in my
no,
life.
absolutely. Yes. I mean, come on, find a person who isn't 117% scheduled in a day. Like,
Yes.
show me the person who has nothing to do for ages at a time. We are always, even when we do, we fill it because we're like, oh my gosh, no, I can't. There's so many things I need to do during this time. I have a program that I run, that I have a standalone course, and then I also have a kind of a coaching thing I'm starting to put together. It's called the 6-day slaycation, because let's slay what we got where we are. Some of us aren't going on vacation anytime soon. So, and it's 6 days because it's short enough to do one day for each of those letters for the HALT TM, and you get little videos from me, short. I'm talking less than 5 minutes, with subtitles and a transcript, because some of you are like hiding in your bathroom and that's the only private place. You don't want to make any noise because they're going to find you that way.
Mm-hmm.
So you can just read. Captions are right at the bottom, and it's got little I have a playlist you can play that is uplifting songs, like really kick-ass, all sorts of, I go from Dolly Parton to Lizzo, huge range. I mean, call it,
I
and I'm
love it.
serious, 31 hours of songs. You are going to hear stuff you've never
Wow.
heard before. Purposely reached out to my community because I'm very big on let's get lots of voices in. I'm not a fan of, oh, well, I liked this stuff, so I guess that's what everybody's going to get. I said before, we don't do any of this alone. So this
Mhm.
program, I worked with all sorts of moms, moms that are white, moms that are black, moms that are moms of color, straight moms, LGBTQ plus moms, moms that are single, moms that are married, moms who have their kids some of the time. I mean, all the way from pregnant moms to moms whose kids are older than me, and just said, okay, what works for your self-care? What do you need? And I designed a program that hits that. Now, if you're not a mom, but you can do with talking about kids sometimes, pop in. Like, it is for anybody who is comfortable in a space where I'm going to talk about parenting some of the
Yes.
time. But what you said is so important, that when we realize we want to change, it's a massive jump to actually making the change.
Mhm.
We've decided to make a change, to we actually made the change is huge, because let's be honest, if we knew how to take better care of ourselves, we'd be doing it now.
Yes.
There's
Yes.
stuff we don't know. And that's where I come in, because I have little, tiny, really post-it note sized steps that help you with your hunger, with your anger, with your lonely, with your tired, with your thirsty, with your mental health.
I
Because
love
it
it.
doesn't need to be big. The littler it is, the easier it is to do. And then that just
100%.
moves and moves, right? Just moves and moves.
Yes. I love that so much. And, you know, that's, I love that how you put it into bite-sized pieces. And because that's really what, you know, what a lot of the stuff I do is all about too. Cause, you know, master your mental, we got the acronym, right? Mindset, engagement, nutrition, talk about it, accountability, love yourself. So what I would love to ask you is our last question. It was, what are you currently doing to master your mental?
That's such a great question. Oh my gosh. Let's see. Right now, I would say that I am putting the finishing touches on the new version of my 6-day staycation. I've added a couple things because my self-care is on point enough that I can turn around and share that with other people. Because
Yes.
if I'm holding it to myself, that's not a bad thing. It's not selfish. I'm taking care of
Mhm.
me, right? Self-care is self-care. It's not to make me good enough to be able to be a better mom, to make me a good employer or employee or a good daughter. It's just for me, right? After I've done the self-care, then I can have the energy to do those other things if I want.
Yes.
So I'm at that point where I can share. I am ready and so excited to help other people untangle themselves from whatever madness you are surrounded by, because
I love
it's
it.
not, you're not doing this by yourself. You are not alone.
I love it. I love it so much. I love what you're doing. I love what you're about. I love your energy. I love the conversation. I love this whole thing. And I feel like I could stay here literally all day long and talk to you about everything related to this under the sun, habits, all the things, progress, everything. And, you know, I just want to thank you, Sara, for making the time in your schedule to come out here on Master Your Mental and have this chat with me and share all these incredible tips, incredible insights from your life and your work. So thank you for coming out.
Oh, absolutely. It's a pleasure. And Paris, keep doing what you're doing, because you are hitting all the right people. There's somebody who heard exactly what they needed to, because you're doing the work on your side. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. And you guys, whether you are listening to this in the daytime, in the nighttime, hope that you guys have a great rest of your day or night. And I'm going to end it on that note and say bye to you guys and bye to Sara. So bye, Sara.
Bye.
Bye.